It's definitely it comes down to resources and what how the medical community will cope with it. I think if you talk to people and the politicians as well, but if you talk to families and people like you guys, most people are like, okay, look, we know these things are there, let's go get them. And so I think most people who are have children or are working in schools, they want to identify these kids. I mean, it's in their best interest. I think the pushback we're getting is from the special interest groups as well as the insurance companies, and these other groups that are concerned, and change scares some people, and I could tell from the people who were talking about this bill down at the Senate, they were scared. They were, whether it be they were scared that it's going to mean changes in the way they do things, changes in their education system, changes for insurance companies, because now they're going to have to pay to have some medical conditions fixed that they didn't have to because the kid just died. They didn't have to pay to get their heart surgery. So change is tough for some of these people, but morally, I think it's the right thing to do, and that as a parent, people talk about these statistics all the time. Well, it's only 1 in 4,000, 1 in 5,000, or whatever it is. But it's if it's your kid, that child is your world. It doesn't matter about statistics there.
Right.
That's 100%.
Right. So at my school, we're probably 95% Hispanic. You talked about the African males being the most high incident. So what are some of the things that I might need to look more at or pay attention to with predominantly Hispanic population?
Again, non-Caucasians have a higher rate of sudden cardiac death. So all groups, regardless of whether it is the African Americans are the top, but the Hispanic Americans are in between. So they are at a higher risk. There are also some things that to be aware of in terms of obesity with Hispanics, depending on the particular area in the population, because we know that overweight or obesity is associated with increased stress on the cardiovascular system. So that's something to be aware of, and even down to maybe what the school's cafeteria is serving. So that's kind of important there, and also just to be cognizant of anyone who tells you that they have any type of cardiac symptoms, whether it be chest pain, palpitations, dizziness, just not feeling right or getting really out of breath more than their colleagues. If there's something that just doesn't seem right, I think it might be worth having them, if they haven't already, at least see a physician as part of their, and just get a overall checkup. But it sounds like you guys are doing a good screening with your history and the physicals. It's just adding. I think it's really critical to add that ECG to make your screening a lot better.
All right. So then that brings the next question. What if a kid, it's preseason, they're my chest hurts. So how do I know if they're one, just trying to get out of workouts because it's hot and they're lazy and they don't really want to play sports, but they're doing it because they have to, or if it's just that they're out of shape and they're breathing hard, so now that their muscles are cramping in the intercostal muscles or whatever, or that it's something that I need to look further into?
That's a great question. I don't know if I have the answer to that, but I know that if they get checked out and they get an ECG, in most cases, again, that would show a problem. I think if the problem persisted, and
so if we don't have a ECG, so we've done the physical, they're cleared there, but we haven't done the ECG because it hasn't been instated yet. So without any extra workup, what is your thoughts, your opinion on when should I send them?
It will. Again, if it's something that they tell you, as a medical personnel, if someone tells us something and we don't act on it and something untoward happens, then we can get into trouble because they can say, well, why didn't you do something? So I'm sort of thinking more from that kind of.
And I think we think that way too. It's just you get 2-a-days in football or whatever, soccer, and the first day everybody's I'm sweaty, I can barely breathe. I can't move. I don't, they're lethargic, and and he actually asked my next question is, what do you do? Because we want to say everybody's out that has chest pains. You need to sit down. Let me look at you. Let me take your blood pressure. But you can't. So
right.
Is there a signal that would trigger us to say, oh, this kid is of particular importance other than his physical or his history? Is there anything you see, or is it just really a judgment call?
I mean, most of the time it's just going to be a judgment call. If it's the first day and you have put together a particularly rigorous workout with having them doing lots of aerobic stuff, and then also having them in their doing active rest breaks, by doing sit-ups and other things. So they're not stopping. And if everyone is complaining, and you're not giving them proper water breaks and stuff like that, then probably if it's not just one person, if it was one person and everyone else is okay, and the person, just doesn't look good, it might be that they don't have a good color, or that they are complaining of chest pain, or maybe they're sweating a lot more than everyone else, or so I would say if you're getting multiple complaints, it's probably because of the fact that either they're not, it's early days in training, or that you maybe have got a mismatch between the training and the environmental conditions, and or the rest breaks and the fluids and all that stuff. But if it's one person, and particularly if it's repetitive, if it's happening more than once. But the problem is, as we talked about before, sometimes you only get one warning, and so I think you have to err on the side of safety and have a policy for that at your school as well. That if someone, and I think it is important to have a policy that if someone does have complaints of chest pain when they're performing PE, this person needs to be seen by a medical physician and receive an ECG or whatever you guys, but do have a written policy and document, make sure you document everything that, and I would say, if it's something that you think is a potentially serious thing, or you're not sure, I don't think that child should return to the field until you've had that further workup. And that can, and I don't mean just your history and physical, I think because you already do that, it sounds like, right?
Right, we do the history and the physical, and like I said, at the end of it, our doctor, he listens to the heart for any palpitations and then recommends, or requires that they get cleared or have further workups. And so, if I have a kid 2 days in a row comes in, my chest is hurting, or every time I exercise, I'm having problems. If I send them to the hospital, is that where they can get the $20 EKG, or like if I say, hey, Dr. Higgins, I got this guy, what's going to be my next step there?
I would say if they haven't collapsed or anything like that, and they're not, they don't look like they're in impending danger, and they're basically someone who is not, I would say, a severe case. I think it would be very reasonable that you touch base with their parents. And I mean, I don't know if you guys have a doctor. Some places have a doctor on site, but if not, have them just touch base with the parents and just say, look, this has happened. We're concerned that there may be something else going on, and could you organize, to have them seen by their family physician, and and if there is a policy, I think that should be sent out to the parents too, so they know, okay, under these circumstances, if a child has, compared to other children, if a child seems to be having, more frequent chest pains, palpitations, getting, more severely out of breath, or whatever you have, or feeling dizzy or like they're passed out, then we require that they be seen, by their physician and have an electrocardiogram and a note from them saying, that they're okay to return to activity or whatever. I think that you really need to cover yourself, because unfortunately, you don't know, that kid might just have one of these underlying cardiac abnormalities. And the worst thing to do, I think, is to just say, like some coaches will just say, oh, I'm going to set an example,
Yeah.
And okay, everyone stay here while, Mikey's going to run 5 times around the oval while we all watch,
Yeah.
Now, are most of the conditions, I know there's, 15 or whatever conditions, are most of them progressive, or are there some that literally they drop? So my question comes down to, do we have a chance to rescue them if there is an event going on, or are there some where when it happens, it's really too late, other than the AED kind of thing?
Yeah, well, I think the electrical instability or channelopathies that they're born with, Mark, those are just going to happen, and there's nothing. In fact, many times you won't have any warning. It'll just be they go down. However, if you do have an AED on site when they go down, it seems like in most of these cases the common arrhythmias tend to be a faster arrhythmia like ventricular tachycardia, and if you do have an AED there, that is the best way to try to shock them out of that. And there have been good documented cases of these children having events and being shocked out and surviving. So there are other cases too where this has happened and they haven't been able to shock them back, or they don't have an AED there. So the one condition that does tend to sort of change a little bit, and they believe also the risk changes too, is hypertrophic cardiomyopathy. And in that we know that condition, the more they're getting hypertrophy of their heart, so the more athletic heart they kind of are developing, the more the hypertrophic cardiomyopathy seems to come out, the abnormal muscle fibers. So it seems like that in those cases, that those people who are doing more heavy and prolonged endurance kind of athletic type activities, they will be the ones who run into more problem. But again, you can oftentimes the ECG abnormalities will precede the muscle abnormalities as well. So the ECG is still a great test to do on that. But unfortunately, most of these conditions, they are born with them, and most of them they have their whole life. But some of them, they will, while they have the genetic predisposition, they will not show themselves until they start getting into sports. And I think that may be, one of the reasons why we do see, a higher rate of sudden cardiac death in sports, but also the fact that, we're putting the body under more stress for most of these kids when we're in sports, as opposed to, someone who's not a big sports person.
It's still a great argument. You got to have an AED on the sidelines at all times.
Oh yeah,
I mean, absolutely.
I think that's a great thing to do, and it's it's a law too now in Texas. So I think I wish more states would follow that. But I think what we as we talked about at the very start of the broadcast, we have to think about those two parts of the equation, the stress part and then the underlying cardiac problem. And right now we're doing we're getting better on the stress part. We understand heat illnesses a lot better, where we understand about having timed breaks, making sure people are well hydrated. We have great training programs, so we've gotten really good at that. What we haven't gotten good at is identifying these people that have the problem, and that's what we're falling behind. It seems like the rest of the world, Europe, Asia, Australasia, we are behind everyone else, and I think we need to make a difference. And I'm hoping that Texas will kick the ball and start this program. If this gets passed, this will take effect immediately. So this will be you guys will be doing this on your athletes, in next month.
Yeah, we have physicals later this month. So
and the other thing I would also just recommend to you guys, if you just Google, there are a whole lot of these heart organizations around, both in Houston and in different states, where the Parent Heart Watch, for example, they're a national group. They have pretty much groups in every state. There's several large cardiology groups, within and in and around Houston. So if you just Google, you'll be able to find there are a lot of places where you can get screening with a $20 or under ECG. So where they will basically just come in on the day you're screening, and they will just add that. And that you can be as involved or not involved depending on what you want to do. They can literally come in as an independent contractor and just do all of them, and they will take care of all the paperwork and all of the follow-ups as well.
I'm almost wondering if they're going to start up those little, kind of like they have those MRI shops. I don't know, shops isn't the best word, in a strip mall, and you can go in and get your MRI there. I'm wondering if they're going to see these, especially with this, if they're going to say AED specialist, or not AED, EKG specialist.
Yeah.
You go in, you get an EKG June 1st, and you present it, and there's their EKG. I wonder if that will.
Yeah.
Come
Well,
up.
like, we've the influenza shot.